story time.
Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. In the city of Verona, there were two chief families, the Capulets and the Montagues. There had been an old quarrel between these two families. It was grown to such heights that the servant of the Montagues could not meet nor talk with the servant of the Capulets. Old Lord Capulet, in his party, invited many fair ladies and noble guests. Benvolio, who wanted to cure Romeo from his infatuation love to Rosalind, persuaded him to go to the party of the Capulets in the disguise of the mask, so that Romeo might see Rosalind and compare her with other fair ladies of Verona, which would make him think he sworn a crow. Romeo, Benvolio, and Mercutio went to the party under the disguise of the mask. As they all fell to dancing, Romeo was suddenly struck with the beauty of Juliet, who seems to him the torches to burn bright. Romeo unknowingly said, like a snowy dove, drooping with crows, so richly did her beauty and perfection shine above her companions. While he uttered praises, Tybalt, cousin of Juliet, overheard him. He was about to strike Romeo, but his uncle Lord Capulet refrained him. While Romeo and Juliet were dancing, they fell in love instantly, but they were shocked to discover that they were sworn enemies. But even after they knew, they could not dissuade themselves from falling in love. At midnight, Romeo returned back to Juliet's house. He was standing behind the orchard when he saw Juliet above at the window. Juliet, thinking herself, called, "O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore thou art Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name for my sake, or if thou wilt not, but my sworn love, and I no longer will be a Capulet." After hearing Juliet's words, Romeo could not refrain himself, came out from his hiding place, and asked Juliet about the confession. Next morning, Romeo went to Friar Lawrence, a good friar. He told him about Juliet and his intention to marry her. Good friar consented to join their hands in marriage. Romeo and Juliet got married that same morning. After the ceremony, Juliet hastened home, but did not tell her parents that she got married to Romeo. At noon, Benvolio and Mercutio, walking through the streets of Verona, where they met the group of Tybalt. They got into fierce words, and so quarrel began. When Romeo passed that way, Tybalt began to start a fight and gave him disgraceful appellation of villain. Romeo did not wish to fight with Tybalt because he was the kinsman of Juliet. Mercutio, who was a friend of Romeo and a relative of Prince of Verona, fought with Tybalt till he was slain by Tybalt. Romeo kept his temper no longer, so he avenged the death of his friend Mercutio by killing Tybalt. The news of the deadly brawl brought the two families, and soon the prince arrived. Benvolio was commanded by the prince to relate the origin of the fight. The prince banished Romeo from Verona as a punishment. When the news reached Juliet, she was angry at Romeo by calling him a beautiful tyrant, a ravenous dove, a lamb with a wolf's nature. At first, she shed tears of grief for Tybalt, but soon turned to drops of joy that her husband is alive. With heavy heart, Romeo proceeds to Mantua. Not many days, Lord Capulet decided to marry Juliet to Count Paris. Juliet refused to marry him, but her father was deaf to all her excuses and ordered her to get ready. Juliet went to Fred Lawrence to ask for his advice, and so they came up with a plan for Romeo and Juliet to be together. The night came when Count Paris came with music to awaken his bride, but instead of a living Juliet, her chamber presented a dreary spectacle. Juliet faked her death by drinking a content of fear, which after drinking it she will become lifeless for 42 hours, and by the time she will awake, Romeo will be by her side and take her to Mantua. That was the plan of Fred Lawrence. Juliet was buried in the ancient tomb of Capulets. The news of Juliet's death reached to Romeo before the messenger sent by Fred Lawrence to tell him that it was only a mock funeral. Romeo rode back to Verona to see his beloved wife in her tomb. After reaching the tomb, he was proceeding to break open the monument when he was interrupted by young Count Paris, who came to lament his bride. Count Paris tried to stop Romeo to enter the tomb, and so they got into a fight in which Romeo slain Count Paris. Romeo entered the tomb, and after kissing his wife Juliet, he swallowed the poison and lay dead beside her. The time arrived when Juliet woke up from her trance. She asked for Romeo, but when Juliet saw the dead body of Romeo and the cup closed in her true love's hand, she quickly unsheathed her dagger and stabbed herself, died by her true Romeo's side. The watchman had given the alarm when he saw the dead bodies. He gave an alarm to the city of Verona, which brought the Lord Manducate and Lord Capulet out of their beds. Frere, who was coming from the churchyard, weeping, trembling, sighing, and there in the presence of Lord Capulet and Manducate, related the story of the children's fatal love. After the prince blamed Capulet and Manducate for their children's death, the two families agreed to end their violent feud in their children's grave.
The message from the play Romeo and Juliet focuses on love, intense passion, love at first sight between Romeo and Juliet.
In this play, love is a violent, aesthetic, overpowering force that supersedes all other values, loyalties, and emotions. The lessons that we learn from the play Romeo and Juliet are: number 1, don't make rash decisions. 2, think through decision. And 3, young love or infatuation love is not a good reason to kill yourself. Thank you.